We are honored today to have Dr. Joel Fuhrman join us on WME3TV's Nexus, brought to you by Eco Media Center of Monroe County, which is now a project of Blue Bee Ecological Endeavors, a nonprofit corporation based in Bloomington, Indiana, devoted to advancing sustainable solutions for the pressing problems of our times, with a focus on meeting the needs of marginalized and underserved communities. In this episode, Fast Food Genocide, The Resistance Lives, we will discuss the effects of the standard American diet on personal and planetary health. But first, we'd like to give you a little background on our esteemed guest. Dr. Joel Fuhrman is a board-certified family physician, a 7-time New York Times best-selling author, an internationally recognized expert on nutrition and natural healing, specializing in preventing and reversing disease through nutritional methods. Dr. Fuhrman is the president of the Nutritional Research Foundation, is on the faculty of Northern Arizona University's Health Sciences Division. He coined the term Nutritarian to describe a nutrient-dense eating style designed to prevent cancer, to slow aging, and extend lifespan. As a native of Yonkers, New York, Dr. Fuhrman is a former world-class figure skater who has advised professional and Olympic athletes, sports medical committees, and athletic trainers about maximizing performance and preventing injury. He has appeared on radio and television and may be best known for his PBS specials, which have raised over $50 million for public television. Among his New York Times bestsellers are the books The End of Heart Disease, The End of Diabetes, and Superimmunity. Eat to Live was his most recent book, or actually, Eat for Life is what was published in 2020. We will here focus a bit on his 2018 book, Fast Food Genocide, with research and contributions by Robert B. Phillips. Dr. Fuhrman has also collaborated on a number of articles for medical journals, including Open Journal of Preventative Medicine and Alternative Therapies in Health and Medicine. And I believe you are joining us now from San Diego. Is that right, Dr. Fuhrman?
That's right. I live here now.
You do live there now. And that's where he operates the Eat to Live Retreat, a residential facility where people from around the world come to stay for 4 to 12 weeks to recover from a range of conditions like cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, and food addiction. So thank you for taking time to speak with us today, Dr. Fuhrman.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Now, before we get into some of the grim statistics and the ways that our audience can empower themselves to evade the traps that are sort of set for us out here in the foodscape, could you tell us how you got into medicine and this nutritional focus, kind of the beginnings of your journey that is clearly not the average
right.
experience for your general practitioner?
You know, I went to medical school with the specific intent to be a physician specializing in nutrition. So I kind of had a passion for this type of career before I started going to medical school. But before that, I was on the world team in figure skating, and then I worked in my father's shoe business, who had a chain of 12 shoe stores in the New York area. And my father was overweight and sickly, and he started reading books, natural hygiene books by Herbert Shelton, and tried to lose weight and eat healthier and get his health in better shape. So I read the books with him and started researching and reading about nutrition and staying well when I was a teenager, which I think aided me and aided us, myself, my sister and I, as a pair team skating for the United States, not getting sick and increasing, and just never getting ill and never getting colds, so we watched our diet when we were competing. But my exposure to that early world made me learn that cancers don't have to happen, and that you don't have to have asthma and rheumatoid arthritis and colitis and headaches and diabetes and blood pressure. These diseases that afflict Americans are the diseases of nutritional ignorance. And it should be reading, writing, arithmetic, and nutritional science taught in grade school, because nutrition is the most powerful factor affecting our health and happiness throughout our whole life. And right now, not only this book, Fast for Genocide, describing the increase in depression and anger and frustration and mental illness and the growth of poor, dysthymia, which means people have no excitement about living and passions anymore. It's ruining, that nutrition is ruining not just the body, but their brains. And how many people who've had a cancer diagnosis or a heart attack or a stroke? It's our whole population dies of these diseases that don't have to happen. So what I'm saying right now is that we have this unprecedented opportunity in human history where we have these foundational studies in nutritional science over the last decade. And I've reviewed about 30,000 of those studies, 30,000 studies to come to the realization that we have the information to win the war on cancer, heart attacks, strokes, and dementia right now. And it's on our plates. It's what we put in our mouth predominantly. And so the opportunity is people can control their health destiny and live longer. But with the excitement and passion about this knowledge, I decided for my father to sell the shoe business so he could retire. And I went back to the postgraduate pre-med program at Columbia and then to the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine to pursue a career as a physician specializing in nutrition. I did not get that training, though, in medical school. I had to get a conventional medical training and then pursue my own research and training to specializing in this field in addition to my specialty in family practice. So I combined this nutritional bent with like treating sprained ankles and suturing people's wounds and taking out, removing skin lesions. And, so I did everything as a family physician, but I also, of course, my major bent was that people would come to me from all over wanting to get well. And I would use excellent nutrition with the right type of supplements and the right type of interventions to have them get rid of their asthma, not treat it the rest of their life with a drug, get rid of their headaches. They don't have to be on drugs, reverse their diabetes so they can be non-diabetic, not go for bypass surgery or angioplasty, but melt away the heart disease and have them be breathing in and throw away their blood pressure drugs and their statins and get off their medications and get the blood pressure back to normal again. So the excitement about my career came to fruition because I'm tremendously passionate and excited about watching people reverse disease and get well.
And do you think there's been any improvement since your days in medical school on the training on nutrition with doctors, or still pretty much the same situation, or only just beginning to really include it at a level that it should be?
Well, let me address that in 3 different ways. Number one, I don't care that much personally that doctors know nutrition, because that's like saying to a person, when you have lung cancer, the doctor should tell you to quit smoking. Well, or when you go to a doctor and you have heart disease, he should get you off the salt in your diet. No, you should never smoke to begin with. You shouldn't quit smoking after you go to a doctor and get lung cancer. The time you go to a doctor with a disease, who cares if he knows about nutrition? You've been eating wrong for 30 years. You should never develop that disease. You shouldn't have been salting your food at the beginning when you were a child through your whole life. You shouldn't have been smoking your whole life. You shouldn't have been eating American diet your whole life. Why wait to a doctor till you have advanced heart disease or early stage cancer or some serious autoimmune condition for them to tell you to intercede with a nutritional intervention? So I'm kind of advocating that it should be reading, writing, arithmetic, and nutritional science, and we have to have nutritional science education taught throughout the educational process, and not be the isolated knowledge base of physicians who just are glorified pharmacists who mostly either do surgeries or write drugs for people. And they don't care about nutrition because they're just because that takes too long, and their practices aren't designed to spend time teaching and educating people. They just want to have people run through the door. On the other hand, as a founding member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, where we'd have a convention of 20 or 30 people, and now these conventions have tens, thousands of people, and there are thousands of doctors across the United States now that are even not only members of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, but are board certified, who use nutrition and other lifestyle modalities as a primary intervention in their medical practice. So there's an explosion of doctors doing this now, but it's still less than 1% of physicians. It's still a very small percent. I'm talking about, 10 or 15,000 physicians, which is a small drop in the bucket, And so and the third thing, of course, is I'm saying that we have to integrate what we've learned and advocate for the population at all stages of the population. PTA groups, adult education, media, government, politics, educational system, medical office, doctor's education. It should be, it's not just the information should be under the hands of physicians who make their money on people being sick, which predominantly have a sick care system, which is treating diseases without getting people well. My type of practice gets people well so they don't need medical care anymore. When they come, even if they're a food addict and they have like advanced heart disease and diabetes and they're 100 pounds overweight, if they come here in San Diego and they spend a few months and lose 50 pounds, they go home with the knowledge how to continue to lose weight. They're no longer diabetic, they no longer have high blood pressure, and they don't really need doctoring anymore or drugs anymore. They're free from the need of medical care. I'm trying to have people not be medically dependent so they don't need doctors to teach them, because generally speaking, I'm saying physicians don't know much more about healthcare than the average truck driver, librarian, and postman does, and plumber. You might as well just ask your plumber about nutrition. You'll get the same, just as much, because they're getting their information from the media. They really haven't studied it, and they're not experts in it. And if they became experts in it, it wouldn't change that much, because we have to have everybody be an expert, not just the doctors.
Well, if it's still only about 1% of doctors, you can imagine what a smaller percentage that is as far as the average population. And if they got it in school, elementary school, and all the way up, it would be more embedded in their practice or their way of thinking about medicine before they ever got to graduate school.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure the 1% figure, by the way. I just threw that out there. It's probably maybe more like 1 in 1,000, more realistically, 15,000 doctors out of the whole mass of doctors in America. I don't know. It's probably more like a 0.1% or a 1,000th of all doctors was probably more accurate, but I don't know that figure. Just don't hold me to that number. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And in the older Chinese and Ayurvedic Indian systems, and kind of in the quotes of Hippocrates about let thy food be thy medicine, it was more an intrinsic component of whatever you would call it, some kind of a consultancy, if not medical intervention as we think of it or practice it today, just a way of setting people back into balance. Because even before industrialized food systems and all that we had, people would get out of balance. You have people that have certain allergies, food allergies and different things, and you'd have to narrow that down on what's affecting their system. So it seems like it should definitely be an intrinsic kind of first stage of when somebody's ailing. You survey, what are you eating? What's your lifestyle?
Oh, absolutely. Lifestyle medicine is the foundation of correct medical care. Any doctor that doesn't practice lifestyle medicine doesn't have the right tools in their toolbox and probably shouldn't even take care of patients. I think medical care has actually evolved into being more harmful. Overall, it's harmful. Because the first thing you learn in medical school in pharmacology is drugs are toxic and their cumulative effect is to increase the risk of cancer. And the second thing is doctors, by giving people medications instead of changing the factors in their lives that are causing disease, enable people to continue on their addictive and self-destructive habits. So the person that's going to fast food restaurants and eating steak and French fries or whatever they're eating that's creating their disease, they go to their doctor with diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure, and the doctor gives them pills. And what do the pills do? They allow them to think they're okay because now their blood pressure looks normal or their blood cholesterol looks normal. And they think they're okay. They're getting a false degree of assurance because they're still deteriorating at a rapid rate if they continue the same diet they're on. So the doctor enabled them to stay on the same pathway of self-destructive eating behavior, leading to a premature death, and has almost not only a worthless effect on extending lifespan, but a negative effect, because we never had any medications to give people. Then the doctor would be forced to say, you got to drop 30 pounds. You have to, stop salting your food, stop eating fried foods, eat mostly fruits and vegetables, have a salad and a vegetable bean soup for lunch, go walk for an hour after dinner. And let's see, you come back next week, a few pounds lighter without the salt and fats in your diet. And let's see if we can get you getting well. So even before that insulin was invented, type 2 diabetics were forced to exercise and change their diet to get well. Now we give them drugs that make them gain weight and become more diabetic. So it's all, so the whole, if you put it all in a big pot, you'd realize the effect of medical care is not that, it has not been extending lifespan. It's been perhaps interfering with the ability of humans to live a long, happy life, because takes the emphasis off self-care as the primary focus of healthcare, self-care.
Yeah, and I'm becoming a lot more attuned with it from getting older, and the experience I talked to you about my dear friend Richard dying of cancer last year.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors, the oncologists literally said to me, it doesn't matter what you feed him, just give him more, because he was wasting and he was losing weight.
Right.
And they accused, me of not taking care of him, not feeding him enough. I actually even sick adult protective services, which quickly determined that they hooked me up with the nutritionist, and they said, no, you're doing everything correct. And I had to look up the term and Google it, cachexia, cachexia, which is where the body starts feeding on itself. No matter how much nutrition that you put to the system, they continue to waste. And so this doctor's making me feel like I'm not doing what I should be doing, and literally has no prescription at all, and says it doesn't matter what you feed him, just give him more, which gets into some of what you talk about in the book, the idea of calories as what you need to pay attention to when all calories are not the same.
Right. The book, we're focusing on this idea of the fast food genocide, meaning that fast food is not just food in a fast food restaurant, but it's also food that can be accessed and digested rapidly, or eaten fast and enters the bloodstream fast. It's concentrated calories with no significant micronutrient load. And I'm saying there's a few things. Number one, there's a dose-dependent relationship between low nutrient calories and shortened lifespan, and almost every disease under the sun, but particularly with depression. And it used to be 1 in 500 Americans used to be mentally ill. Now it's 1 in 5. And they're on drugs for depression. And we're saying here that, even 2 servings a week of fast food or commercial baked goods like croissants and donuts and cookies and bagels, because they're not food, they're drugs. These processed carbohydrates and products made with white flour and sweeteners enter the bloodstream as pure sugar. And the spike in sugar in the bloodstream damages brain cells and also makes your brain dopamine insensitive. The same areas of the brain that are stimulated by narcotics and opiates are stimulated by the rush of sugar in the bloodstream and the rush of oil in the bloodstream. Anytime you see the caloric spike in the bloodstream, it can stimulate the brain. And these people now, and I'm saying these people, I'm meaning most Americans, the majority of people in America, are addicted to consuming a huge caloric load that they don't need. And their bodies grow bigger and they grow overweight. And I'm also saying there's no such thing as a healthy overweight person. Our whole population is addicted, and 89% of Americans are overweight by my standards. I'm classifying 89% of Americans as overweight using a BMI of 23 as the demarcation line between normal weight and overweight. Because the US government says, the health authorities say 77% of Americans are overweight because they use a BMI of 25 as the demarcation line. But there's no long-lived healthy centenarians with BMIs above 23. It's all long-lived people. And actually, the optimal BMI for a male is below 22 and for a female is below 21. So 23 is certainly permissive enough. But in any case, most Americans are overweight. They're addicted to overeating calories. It makes them prone to depression. And they don't just have 2 servings a week, they have 20 servings a week, some people. But when they don't get depressed, they become dysthymic, which means they're not excited about and passionate about living. They're not looking for happiness around them. They're not excited about things in their life they can accomplish. They just wind up being in a rut. And the food makes their brain in this rut of just living for addictive substances. And I'm also saying, and described in the book, that white flour and sugar is the gateway drug to alcoholism and more serious drug use. And there's also a scientific studies, evidence with a dose-dependent relationship between the consumption of candy, commercial baked goods, and fast food, and being addicted to drugs or being arrested for criminal for a drug-related criminal offense. So all these things are affected. It makes people more angered, more violent, less ability to weigh evidence, to jump to conclusions, and to not be the proper version of, not be the full version of themselves. And actually, being any kind of addict, particularly a drug addict, makes you more narcissistically consumed with your own needs and your own addictive needs, and not with doing good for others and trying to make the world a better place. It makes you more, you're not the best father, the best neighbor, the best community member, the best person protecting the planet for future generations. You just become narrowly involved with your desire for instant gratification through drugs or food or whatever it may be. And I discussed in my book, Fast Food Genocide, the history of this from the world, even from the Civil War, when even when we're talking about the lynching of blacks and the Jim Crow laws, where blacks were driven out of the South, and the violence against them was contributed to by the poor nutrition and by the spread of pellagra, a disease caused by niacin deficiency, which can cause violence, aggression, and even homicides, suicide, and homicidal behavior. Makes people like half crazy. And that the medical profession didn't know pellagra, which causes a red neck, by the way. It's the original term, rednecks. People were very violent, but there was because of nutritional deficiencies, because their diet was mostly corn and pork and molasses. They didn't have enough vegetables in their diet. So, but in any case, the medical profession denied, they didn't know it was nutrition. They thought these were genetic defects in individuals. And they put most of them in prison. They imprisoned a lot of these people with pellagra. It wasn't until after about 1915, when a physician started feeding them, having them grow vegetables and feeding these prisoners vegetables, when they found that they were helping their brains become normal again, and they can let these people out of the prison and not have them have recidivism with repeat crimes, because they started feeding them vegetables. And then, of course, but we're seeing this today all over again. We're seeing an explosion in mental illness, explosion in anger, and violence, and lack of ability to weigh evidence and think clearly in people that are marginally nutritionally deficient from the growth of the fast food, restaurant, and processed food industry. And now, instead of not eating vegetables and eating molasses and corn and pork, now they're eating fast food and bread and bagels and pizza and burgers and French fries and Coke and soda, and they're still not eating vegetables, enough sufficient vegetables, which is destructive to your brain, not just your body. So we have a vicious cycle going on. That is very destructive to the future of the human race, because now we have a growing number of people that don't care about anything except their own immediate needs. And in the process, they can destroy the planet, destroy the climate, pollute the environment, and perhaps cause the extinction of the human race, but essentially making the world a much more unsavory place and difficult place to produce food for future generations. And we're dead. We should be caring for so we have to care for ourselves, certainly. And we have this opportunity to be healthier and happier by eating better, and not have to worry about diseases and get cancer, but to think more clearly and to be more excited about living, and then also, obviously, be able to have more feeling, compassion, and think and plan for the future, and much better if we have people, of course, more aware of what's going on in the food environment. So I'm saying food is a major part of this formula leading to our own self-destruction.
Yeah, and the historical examples that you get into in the book are kind of, I don't think I've seen it stitched together anywhere else in that way of how it affects culture and politics. And your use of the term genocide, surely not used lightly, may have some bristling at the idea that junk food and burger chains don't amount to anything like an attempt to eradicate an ethnic or cultural group in whole or in part via a concerted policy of some faction or the state. But as we see this backlash against the demographic shifts in population, making up the so-called browning of America, which projects the end of a white majority in the US in the coming decades, as the dog whistles become bullhorns and attempts to create social equity are actively fought by a formerly ascendant caste of people that have long been complacent about the systemic racism. They're targeting their political rivals, fine with police brutality, doing the voter suppression and the demonization of their political rivals. Can anyone really deny the massive deprivation by design that's baked into the American pie chart that is underlying all of these cultural problems?
That's true. I mean, it's interesting. I know it's hard. It's a hard concept for people to grasp, but we're saying our country is based on, obviously, personal freedom and this opportunity we have in America to achieve our dream. And we don't give this person the opportunity to achieve their dream if they don't have the foundation of good nutrition and healthy food, because their brains can't develop normally. They can't be as an intelligent, creative, compassionate, and they're a mere fraction of who they could have become unless they're fed healthfully. So whether it's food deserts on the south side of Chicago, or whether it's people living on fried food in New Orleans and within the cancer stroke belt, where we have more deaths, more murders, more criminal behavior, but also not just poor education, more criminality, but dramatically increased risk of strokes, heart attacks, diabetes, obesity. And I'm saying food is inherently at the core of these tragedies. I'll speak to large medical groups and I'll say, raise your hand if you've been shot by a bullet or stabbed by a knife, and there'll be 500 people in the audience, and maybe one person will raise their hand. And I'll say, that's not so dangerous a neighborhood, I guess you're living. But what about anybody you know in your family or your close acquaintances that have a cancer diagnosis or have a heart attack or a stroke? And everybody's hand will go up. And I'll say, and that's a neighborhood you want to stay living in, where almost everybody around you has either a heart attack or a stroke or gets cancer? That means you're just living your life with the expectation of having a tragedy befall you. There was no cancers and heart attacks in early humans and in the natural world. And, the first, even cancer was hardly mentioned in the scientific literature before the 17th century, when they found mostly scrotal and testicular cancers in men who worked as chimney sweeps, who were bound around smoke all day. People that grew their own food. And, even after World War II, even 1940s, the cancer rates were less than about 1/10 where they are today. But in those days, around World War II, the U.S. government was still advocating people grow gardens and grow food. And it was about 44% of the American food consumption pie was food that people raised on their own homes. And people ripped up their lawns and planted vegetables, and because men were going to war, and they wanted the farmers those foods to be shipped overseas and to be packaged for the soldiers, and we wanted people in America to grow a lot of their own food. And between 1900 and 1950, we saw a huge amount of the American population, the American calories, be consumed by people, a lot of food that people could grow themselves. And then between, of course, 1945 and 1950 on, we saw the explosion of the processed food movement and the growth of commercial food made by food scientists to get people hooked. And that exploded into fast food restaurants and processed food in convenience stores, and where people can eat foods out of bags and boxes and cans. And then we're seeing a deterioration of the humans in this society and spreading this to other parts of the world, which leads to a deterioration of our health, our happiness, and our future well-being, and living in fear. And you need medical doctors now. You need an explosion of medical care to care for these sick people. And you can't even make doctors fast enough and hospitals fast enough to care for all the sick people and COVID's a perfect example of that. COVID is harmless to a person who's truly healthy. To a person eating junk food and fast food and processed foods, they're going to be ripped apart by it, because we can talk about the reasons, but everybody knows that COVID hits people who have other comorbidities, overweight, diabetic, poor diets, and the healthy people don't get affected negatively by it. But of course, that's just whether it's pneumonia, even being 20 pounds overweight increases your risk of later life pneumonia. We're talking here that science, nutritional science, has made it clear that we're a primate, and we're dependent on a high intake of vegetables for good health. And if you don't like vegetables and don't like greens, then you can't be normal. You might as well live close to a hospital. You know, look at women who are told, women are told of childbearing years to take folate pills so they have normal babies without without neural tube defects. That is so ridiculous, because folic acid that they take in a pill form is another medication. It's not real. It's not something found in food. Food gives us folate, not folic acid. So we're giving women folic acid instead of having them eat the real thing, which is folate found in vegetables and beans. So instead of telling women of childbearing years that we're a vegetable-dependent animal, if you don't eat green vegetables, you can't have a normal baby, you're going to have neural tube defects. So instead of doctors telling people to eat normally, they give them a synthetic drug that's like the folate found in green vegetables. So now we're going to close up neural tube defects so people now don't have to eat green vegetables. So now we have other birth defects, heart defects, autism, and of course the link between childhood cancer and the lack of green vegetables in the mother's diet prior to conception and during pregnancy, which has been facilitated by the medical profession, telling people to take folic acid because now they don't have to eat, because they missed the opportunity to educate people on the need to take green vegetables. And also the fact that it's not just the diet during pregnancy, but it's even years before pregnancy that affects the health of the child. And now the number one cause of death in children is, other than accidents, is acute blastocytic leukemia, or a type of childhood cancer, which is linked to the mother's diet, even during pregnancy, but before conception, that causes these issues when the child is born. So we're just gone in such a absolutely insane direction in healthcare. And we're not, who asks the question, well, why would the human body need to take a synthetic folic acid pill to have a normal baby? What is there in the diet that we're doing wrong that would make us have to take a pill? It's so ridiculous. You know, the whole thing is ridiculous. Nobody even thinks rationally. And they don't look at the, downside, long-term effects of giving people this folic acid pill. And by the way, folic acid is linked to cancer. The folic acid pills that people take and their vitamins are linked to higher risks of breast and prostate cancer and colon cancer, but mostly breast and prostate cancer, because it's not a normal substance. And I'm saying we're a green vegetable dependent animal. If you want to be normal, you have to have a high intake of green vegetables, because the intraepithelial lymphocytes, the part of the immune system that's built around the villi in the small intestines, under the wall of the small intestines, is the defenders at the gates of the castle, defends toxins and poisons and viruses and bacteria, and whether it's COVID or any other virus. There, the first defense is the body's immune system that surrounds the digestive tract. And that immune system atrophies and doesn't even function normally unless it's fueled by the growth of a lot of green vegetables in the diet. We're talking about both raw vegetables and cooked vegetables. And if you're listening to me here, I'd like you to write down this sentence, these 10 words. Let me tell you what these 10 words are. I'm not sure if it's 10 words, but let me tell you what the words are. Raw vegetables have the most consistent and powerful association with the reduction of cancers of all types. So it's about 10 words. You could memorize those 10 words. Let me say it one more time. Raw vegetables, the consumption of raw vegetables, have the most consistent and powerful association with the reduction of cancers of all types. So we're saying here that the nutrient density of your tissues are proportional to the nutrient density of your diet. You have to eat a diet with a high nutrient bang per caloric buck in order to be healthy. We can't eat foods that do not contain nutrients, like processed foods and animal products, which both are low nutrient foods. And I'm saying here, a bagel is like a piece of chicken because there's no phytochemicals or antioxidants. They're just source of calories. We have to consume large amounts of these foods that have the nutrients humans need to slow aging and to fight off disease. And I have this acronym, GBOMBS. GBOMBS, G-BOMBS, which helps people remember these 6 most powerful anti-cancer foods that they want them to eat in their diet almost every day. And they are, of course, green vegetables for the G, and greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, like flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, sesame seeds. People don't realize the importance of these healthy of nuts and seeds, but particularly seeds. And I'm saying right now that most Americans and people in the Western world get most of their fat intake from oils and animal fats. And a nutritarian eating for longevity gets most of their fats from whole nuts and seeds. It's not walnut oil, we use the whole walnut. It's not pistachio oil, we use the whole pistachio nut. We're making a dressing out of the whole nut. Hemp seeds, sesame seeds, flax seeds, walnuts. We're eating fats from this nuts and seeds mixed in the salad to make a salad dressing, not pouring the oil taken from that nut or seed, because then you've lost all the lignins, the fibers, the phytochemicals, and the anti-cancer effects. And plus the fact that when you eat nuts and seeds as your source of fat, the calories come in so slowly into the body that the body can preferentially burn them for energy. When you take the oil extracted from a seed or a plant, it comes into the bloodstream so fast and spikes the calories into the blood with so many calories at one shot that it stimulates the apostat in the central nervous system and the opiate dopamine receptors in the brain to be an appetite stimulant and make people become addicted to concentrated calories. So I'm saying here that the nutrition in modern world is so far away from the way people should be eating. We need a radical change in the way people eat to really solve some of these problems in our society.
And is the vegetable oils becoming oxidized, rancid? Is that a problem in itself? Because I mean, they're in everything. These vegetable oils are in anything that's in any way processed, pretty much.
Yes.
What are the direct problems that those cause, which is so pervasive in the average person's diet?
That's correct. Even glycidal from the extraction chemicals for oils, the chemical extraction leaves glycidal residue, which is a toxin that's in baby formulas, even for the oil they put in baby formulas. But of course, the oils have these toxins in them. But besides the fact, when you heat an oil, you form more rancid and carcinogenic, genotoxic, and cytotoxic compounds, dangerous compounds from heating oils. That's why there's a relationship between fried foods and such a higher rate of cancer, particularly fried foods and Crohn's disease and colitis and autoimmune conditions. We have so we're talking about people who, French fries and whatever it is you're frying in oil or cooking in oil, fried chicken, because obviously frying foods is very damaging. So yes, the idea of cooking in oil and heating oils and even using oils is a recent phenomenon in human history. Don't forget, humans have been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. It's only the last 1,000 years, whatever, hundreds of thousands of years, only the last probably few hundred years that we're using oils. Even people in the Mediterranean countries 100 years ago hardly used much oil, very little, as a competitive total calorie, which has increased radically in the last few generations. But in any case, then in those days, people were walking behind a plow, working in the fields 8 hours a day. Now they were sitting on computers, and the extra oil is making everybody fat. It's 120 calories a tablespoon. And the average American consumes 500 extra calories from oil. Where are you going to burn those calories off if you're sitting down? Unless you have a physical job, unless you're a professional athlete, or you're digging ditches all day long, or working behind a plow with an 800-pound plow and an ox up and down your fields for 10 hours a day, there's no way you're going to keep your weight off if you're sitting around pouring oil over your food too. And people don't recognize how dangerous the fat on the body is too, because fat cells spew out cytokines, lipokines, and reactive oxygen species because they're not adequately perfused with blood supply. Low oxygenated tissue. And the fat cells make you insulin resistant, so then make your glucose circulate higher and make your insulin production go higher and produce more estrogen, so they're hormonally setting you up for cancer. So we have people that are totally confused and misinformed about their bodies, and they think they can't lose weight. They think it's impossible because everything they try doesn't work, because they don't really understand that they don't, unless they get enough nutrients in their tissues and eat enough vegetables, their appetite's going to be they're going to be like a calorie craving monster. They can't stop wanting to crave excess calories and feeling they need the extra calories to keep their energy up, unless they fuel the body with enough high nutrient foods. So the diet industry has let them down too, because all these fad and scam diets that don't work.
Is olive oil a better alternative, as it's generally kind of portrayed in the semi-enlightened circles? I mean, when you start getting into this stuff, there's always recommendations for and against, depending on which kind of guru you go to.
Well, I do think smoking cigarettes is better than snorting cocaine. But just because snorting cigarettes is better than cocaine doesn't mean I recommend cigarettes, or we don't buy a car by comparing it to a junkyard wreck. Let me give you a direct answer now. Just because olive oil is a better oil than other types of oils, or maybe is somewhat better, less dangerous, it's still not as good as eating a whole nut or a seed or a whole olive or a whole avocado it's still for example, the Prevamid study showed a 15% reduction in heart attack deaths when people used extra virgin olive oil instead of other fats like butter and other oils. They had an improvement in heart attack deaths when they switched to olive oil, but that went down by 15%. When they took the oil away and they had people use nuts and seeds instead of oil, their heart attack rates in the group went down by 60%, not 15%. Basically speaking, I'm making this radical statement that olive oil is a major factor creating rates of breast cancer, for example, because it leads to women being overweight, and overweight makes you produce more estrogen. So even though they think the olive oil might be a better oil than some other oil and better than animal fats or butter, it's still fattening. And the fact that the regular consumption of oil is preventing people from achieving a healthy weight means it's dangerous. So just because it's better than something else doesn't mean it's good if there's something else that's still better. It's always what you can compare it to. Eating eggs might be better than eating donuts, but that doesn't make eating eggs good. If you compare eating eggs to beans are 10 times better than eating an egg as far as their ability to extend lifespan. So, but eggs might be better than donuts. So it's all what you're comparing it to. So people are fooled. So the egg industry is going to promote all these studies comparing putting eggs in the diet where people are eating tons of meat. So it doesn't matter they ate some extra eggs, but they're going to make studies. They're going to, make them design not to show that eggs look too bad, or the same thing. We could make anything not look too bad based on what we compare it to. But if we want to compare it to the best type of foods and the best diet, that's where you really got to delve into reading thousands of studies to see where the most longevity, the lowest rates of cancer, the longest lifespans occur, what foods are linked to longer lifespan, and have a threshold effect that, when you see, and we're talking here about, that's what we're talking about now, is making the diet a higher degree of excellence, which then enables you not only to be healthier, but happier, more at peace with yourself, and more satisfied with the right amount of calories. So you don't have to be on a diet to lose weight. You're just enjoying the healthy foods you're eating, and you're automatically losing weight because now you've become, I could say, a health nut, which I call a Nutritarian. Actually, the word health nut's not bad because I'm telling people eat nuts and seeds. So health nut, right, is a pretty good word. But Nutritarian is my word that represents a person eating healthfully and moving towards their ideal weight if they're overweight. If you're overweight and not going down, not on the process of going down, then you're not really on a Nutritarian diet. Because if you were on a Nutritarian diet and doing it right, and you're overweight, you'd be losing a little bit of weight each week as you're moving towards your ideal weight, or you'd be at your ideal weight,
Yeah, I've referred to some people that aren't as clued into this kind of things as a Nutritarian evangelist, which could have its own pejorative connotations there, but as someone enthusiast, bringing the good news to you.
Yeah, I don't care what people call me. I just want to get this message out because I've always been saying for decades that I don't have to change everyone in America, but people deserve to know this information so they can make an educated choice because nobody else is telling it to them. So it's like informed consent for a doctor. You come in with high blood pressure and diabetes, I'm saying put on drugs the rest of your life, or give people an option that they don't have to be on drugs the rest of their life and they can get totally well again if they change their diet and exercise and eat right. And I'm saying to you, and the doctors see in medical school in my training, the other doctors would say this. They would say, oh yeah, we know that works, but because people aren't going to listen to you and it takes too much time and you're not going to make a lot of money that way, it's just easier to give them a drug. And then I would say to them, it doesn't matter that they won't listen to me. It doesn't matter that if 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 will listen to, that's not even the point. Because if it's only 1 out of 100, I would still want to do it. Because then you're not giving people proper informed consent and you're taking away their potential ability to make a choice for themselves. And you made the choice for them that they wouldn't want to do it. And that's not what that's not. So, so to me, I'm that evangelist giving out people information and they could take it or leave it. You know what I mean? But at least I got it out there so people have the option to hear this and to know they have a choice not to have a heart attack, not to have a stroke, not to get demented, not to get cancer, and live a long life. And I'm saying the normal lifespan should be between 95 to 105 years old, or actually 97 to 107 years old. And people should be able to live near 100 years old with good mental faculties and physical abilities, and not have their body deteriorate like it does in America. And in the food deserts and people where you have a lot of obesity and diabetes, eating poorly, we have a tremendous years of potential life lost. There was one study that took overweight Black diabetic women living in a food desert with poor food access. So here you have a Black diabetic overweight woman who might be 50 to 100 pounds overweight. And her years of potential life loss was calculated by the scientist as being 40 years of life loss. That's how young these people were dying, because of poor food access, poor information, poor education, and not being being raised in an environment, in a toxic food environment. That's how critical this is compared to, and people don't realize there's tremendous differences of lifespan, even in America, in different places of America. There's differences in lifespan, differences in breast cancer incidences, and there might be some countries around the world may have 1/50th the amount of breast cancer that we have. And we're taught, oh, it's genetic. It's just the inevitable consequence of aging, and the treatment is going to doctors. And they don't really learn that, well, this is really part of it's how we live that determines these outcomes, and how we live can prevent these outcomes too. And so people need to have this information so they can make a choice. They want to have breast cancer or not. And they think that, well, mammograms is going to protect them, which detects something that's already cancer. And by the time you get a positive mammogram, the majority of those tumors have spread through the whole body, and medical interventions and the health and have very little to affect on lifespan at that point. So it's all just meant confusion in the masses,
Well, and I think that's one of the prime obstacles for a lot of people, even those that are trying to align themselves with a better ethic, be it ecologically or just health, let alone trying to address some kind of mental health concerns or some kind of chronic condition. But in 2020, COVID-19 came up as number 3, the number 3 in the top 10 causes of disease, heart disease and cancer being 1 and 2. And so that's over 20% of people dying of heart disease. So I guess that's 1 in 5 when you look around to your family and your friends.
Well, out of adults, it's it's more than 35% of people who are over the age of 65. More than 35% die of heart attacks and strokes, cardiovascular disease. So it's a leading cause of death in people over the age of 65 is heart attacks and cardiovascular disease, and it's totally preventable. So that totally preventable.
Yeah,
so we're talking about millions of people dying needlessly, millions and millions of people across America dying needlessly. It's like we only have our own war going on here against that heart attack and cancer causing foods. Of course, the horror today, of course, of people dying and being tortured and killed in wars is still insane and crazy and horrible. And just every day, I can't get over the fact that people are killing themselves, like in Ukraine. It's just the Russian attack on Ukraine, and just all this stuff is just absolutely insanity, that we can't live in peace with each other and stop and help each other instead of hurting each other is so hard to bear, that people are going to kill each other instead of helping each other. And you get so much pleasure in life from helping other people. And that makes you happy and feel good about yourself when you're taking care of and being good for other people instead of fighting and trying to kill each other. It's like, wow, this is and food has something to do with it too, but something to do with it. But still, it's just crazy the way what humans can travel and go in the wrong direction when their brains aren't working right.
It's a simpler solution to dominate than the complexities of cooperating, is what it seems to come down to.
Yeah, just horrible.
And these, I guess it was, I think the USDA, their definition of a food desert is a low-income census tract with little access to supermarkets and without, and public transportation being a component of that. And these are the legacies and remnants of redlining, withholding investment from communities that created these ghetto situations that are now, even if it's not someone trying to target a race or something. There's these systemic leftover effects that continue to make it so acute in these minority populations. And so their numbers are much worse, as you were saying. And I mean, you're one of the few people that are out here trying to give some other solution, some other path, some other way, some way to address this. And you got into the history with the military.
Right.
I thought it was amazing when you talked about how the Nazis were looking into superior nutrition, whereas the Americans started looking into kind of the mechanistic view of just providing more, maximizing the land, the product of the land, more calories, and that the military industrialized the food system. I mean, can you speak on that as one of the prime factors, this, and what is now just a corporate behemoth that is invested in this short-term profit model, this myopic view that doesn't consider the collateral consequences on the planet or the population? Because as a corporation, you can make money off anything once you're huge, off of giving them the poison and off of treating them for the poison.
Yes, it's very complicated. Getting down to, we can talk about that, but what can help us all and save us is regenerative organic farming, where we're taking care of the soil. And I'm saying something different now, and I'm saying that the quality of the food is proportional to the quality of the soil. And the soil rich in organic matter is rich in insects, bacteria, fungi, worms, and is natural plant material. I'm a big composter, and saving weeds and food scraps and manure. Well, anyway, growing trees and vegetables and planting. In other words, then there's something about your soul, about being part of nature, working with dirt and growing your own food that's so satisfying, and I would never even think of putting food from like a chocolate chip cookie or a bagel at an airport into my mouth, or a fast food in my mouth. Wouldn't even, how could I? That's like, you can't get 10 men to tie me down and to shoot me up with heroin and to put that food that people are eating in their mouth. I'm looking to go, don't you, it's funny because my kids, I have 4 children that are adults now, and when they were little kids, like 4 and 5 years, 6 years old, they could understand that people were attracted to these bad foods that were unhealthy. They could understand the tastes sucked people in, but they couldn't understand why parents would keep encouraging their children to self-destruct. They could say, well, why are the parents bringing donuts to the soccer games? Why did the parents bring candy into the exercise class? Why did the parents, don't they know it's unhealthy? Why are they trying to hurt and damage their kids? Don't they love their kids? And they'd say, yeah, they love their children. They just don't know any better. Because they're food addicts as an adult, they're in cognitive dissonance. They don't think about the damaging effect that eating those foods have on themselves or their children. And they can just give their kids junk foods that cause cancer or could ruin their brains and lower their intelligence and lower their, so my kids never could figure out how crazy society was when they were looking at it from the point of view was, why don't they know that what you eat makes your body? How could they be so stupid? Don't you know what you put in your mouth makes who you are, both intellectually and physically? They couldn't figure out how people thought you could just eat it, put anything in the body and not pay a price. So I mean, because it seems so logical, and so it's just sensibly basic here, that we're degenerating the human race and the planet because we're putting junk in, we're putting processed fake foods. We call them frankenfoods sometimes, but you can't eat this the way other Americans eat, or you get what other Americans get, which is a life that's with too high a risk of tragedy, and then eventually you have a shortened lifespan before by tragical medical problems, and you become medically dependent on drugs, on medical drugs.
Well, also the people that are trying to do better, they're eating organic and things like this, they are still getting these chemicals that are spewed everywhere. I believe there's glyphosate in the rain now. So even if you're collecting rainwater, the soils are destroyed. The microbe populations are part of the species that are going extinct by these systems that have been unleashed, because all that focus is on that short term, that maximization, that profit, and not the holistic situation. And you're essentially talking about realigning with evolution, that we've divorced ourselves from with our kind of theologies that we are this independent machine and that we can just use things to our ends instead of understanding that we are a part of an overall system and that there are limits.
I've never even met you before, but it's amazing how much where the heck you know so much stuff, and you think a lot of these things like I do, and you're a surprisingly deep thinker in these issues, and I'm kind of like very interested and fascinated that you know all this stuff. Pretty
Well, that's
cool.
exactly why I've
Pretty cool.
gravitated to you in the same wise. And there needs to be more bridging with people that are changeable, that are open. But in the meantime, they are embedded in these systems as they exist. And I mean, it took years for me to graduate myself away from just norms, the surrounding norms.
Yes, the surrounding norms, right? So everybody listening's got to see if they can, do personally take care of their health, be a better version of themselves, grow more of their own food if they have the option to do that in their own, in their own homes, share, do what they can to support other people living healthfully, take up politically and social, in the political and social context we live, do what we can to do to positively affect other people to understand these concepts and to improve and one of the things to do is be healthy, be a role model of good health, so you can emanate those superpowers to have a positive effect on others. So this is, I'm grateful for the opportunity here to speak to you and your audience, and I hope that people got a lot of interesting information that they can take further, can learn more, and perhaps take this to the next step.
Yep, and we will try to hold you to having another interview in the next year here, in the new year maybe.
I'd love to do that.
To get into more of some of these solutions. There is a food pantry here in town that's a standout, that has gardens, that grows organic. It's not one of these places with just frozen meat and canned goods, which is generally what a lot of these food banks ask people to give, non-perishable. So
Right.
everything is against freshness. Everything is for shelf stable.
Right.
And it's just great that you have penetrated the national psyche somewhat through your PBS appearances primarily.
Yes.
I mean, book readers are book readers, but the average person has been a little more clued in by getting that info, and it re-airing a lot actually kind of drills it in to people that otherwise kind of glaze over.
I know, it's amazing how many times they've showed my shows on PBS. I think they've repeated my shows in reruns so many times that I think that they've told me at PBS that I've been on television more than Oprah has. That's how I'm told how many times my show's been shown over and over again over the last 10 years,
And did they kind of censor you a little bit? I mean, this fast food genocide book, when I came across it, I was like, oh, this is a lot more candid. This is a lot more edgy than the main thing you get.
I'll show you, I'll give you an example of mild censorship, which is, so I'm on television, I'm drawing the American food pie, showing that Americans only eat 2% of calories from vegetables, and mostly they eat 30% of animal products and 60% from processed foods. And I say, this diet's been designed by Al-Qaeda to kill us. And so if you watch the show, they dubbed out Al-Qaeda, and they had a different voice say Darth Vader. So it says now, this diet's been designed by Darth Vader to kill us. I didn't say Darth Vader. I said Al-Qaeda. That's not even funny, Darth Vader. They ruined my joke.
They literally put words in your mouth.
Yes, put the words in my mouth because they didn't want me to say Al-Qaeda. I don't know why, but it's kind of funny, But of course, it's not as funny as Al-Qaeda. So of course they actually changed the joke.
Well, yeah, we got to turn people away from the dark side.
Yeah. All right. Well, good talking to you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. And you're welcome. Have a great week.
Next time.